fly fishing channel, nature's song in every puddle.
So it all began like always, me scrolling through Google Maps looking for a mountain stream that can hold trout. Then I spotted it, a narrow mountain river tucked between tall cliffs with pine-covered mountain sides. This is it, I thought. This is where I will finally find my dream trout. So I arrived late in the evening, barely any sunshine coming from behind the mountains, and after settling in, I geared up and I went for a short evening dry fly session. It was getting dark pretty fast, but I saw a few rises and splashes. Wondering what type of fish they were, I made my first cast, and soon after I hooked into my first fish.
Yes.
And guess what? It was a chub. At this point I was happy to even catch one fish on a dry fly, and I figured because the sun was already setting, it was only chubs that would rise for a dry fly. So the evening session was pretty short-lived. You know, the sun goes down pretty fast. I mean, too fast in the mountains, but I made myself dinner. But you know what's common in all the places I have been? Complimentary booze. Cheers to all of you. This was blueberry palinka, if I'm right. So in the morning I quickly geared up and got in the water just above the settlement sign, the village sign, and I didn't have to wait too long before I had my first bite. You know, this is where I started realizing that the water temperatures are surprisingly warm for a river like this in between the mountains. And pretty quickly I figured out that all the bites are chubs. So everywhere I looked, I saw fish fries in the margins, mainly chubs. And when the water is this warm, you surely know that you are in chub country.
Oof.
Did I make a mistake? This place looks like the perfect trout habitat. Speaking of which, trout zone is not just an expression I made up myself. Let me introduce you to the European river zone system. So in this ecological system, each zone gets its name from its dominant fish species and characteristics. The zones go like this. First the trout zone, grayling zone, barbel zone, bream zone, and the last one is the brackish saltwater zone. For example, the headwaters, woodland rivers in mountainous regions with fast-flowing, well-oxygenated clear water are considered the trout zone. This is an important habitat for salmonid species, but also lamprey species. This zone is characterized by its rocky riverbed, fast-flowing, cold, oxygen-rich waters, and of all the river zones in this system, this zone has the least amount of floating sediment in the water. Bye-bye, trout. So going downstream, we reach the grayling zone. The river here usually widens and the bottom switches to smaller rocks and gravel. A bit more sediment can be observed here with higher nutrient levels for the fish. This is mainly the home of the grayling, but you can start to see a few more rheophile fish species appearing here too, and usually you can find trout species here too. And an interesting part of information is that even though the next zone is called the barbel zone, you can start to notice the presence of a barbel subspecies in the grayling zone, the Barbus peloponneseus. It's a pretty rare sight, but I found a lot of small specimens in a feeding stream. Speaking of barbels, the next zone is the barbel zone. So the name giver of this zone is the Barbus barbus, the common barbel. In this zone, the river starts to meander slowly after it has reached the lowlands. By the way, you can check out my video about my top 5 names for lowland fish. You can click it here. So this zone has a lot of food, lot of sediment, and slower flowing, warmer water. Then going down again, we have the bream zone, the dream zone. This is the zone that mainly can be found in my country, so I know it pretty well. It is characterized by its slow-flowing water. This is the area where rheophile, current-loving species, mix with limnophile species. Limnophile species are the fish species that like slow-flowing or still water. And our last zone is the brackish zone. The river almost stops here, mixes with saltwater, and a lot of fish species that you would consider saltwater fish species, flounder, smelt, sea bass can be here, but also a lot of freshwater species tolerate a low level of saltwater, like European perch or zander. But the thing is, these zones are not strictly defined by solid borders. I mean, there's no border to a zone that says, okay, no more bream from here now on. And even small local geological features can affect the distribution of fish species. For example, there are always news of people catching trout in bream zones behind dams in oxygen-rich water, especially in the springs after floods, or I have seen perch being caught in trout zones. That's another question if zone-specific species will be found in places like this. The Squalus cephalus, I had to relearn the Latin name because I grew up with older fish biology books where it was called Leuciscus cephalus. Anyways, the European chub is an incredibly adaptable fish species. They prefer mid-river stretches but can tolerate a wide range of flow, depth and water quality. In rivers affected by warming or pollution, you can often find them pushing further upstream, even into zones that are considered classic trout zones. And this is what happened here, I think. I found an overlapping zone between the grayling zone and the barbel zone. The barbel zone, or grey bill zone. And this is supported by the fact that I haven't seen a single trout, and the only 2 graylings I saw, one of them was, oh no, unalived, sadly, and the other one I caught right before a storm when the temperatures have quickly fallen. And also I have never fallen or slipped this much in waders before on the rocks, and I blame it on the excessive algae presence you can see on the rocks. And we know that algae produce a lot of oxygen by photosynthesis, but they also take a lot of oxygen when they are growing or decomposing. And when a healthy system is messed with, for example by sewage water or fertilizer washing in from nearby fields, the excess algae can lower the level of dissolved oxygen in any body of water. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this yellowish biofilm on the rocks must be the excess algae, because I have never seen this much algae in a trout zone before. So back to the fishing part. After falling and hitting my waterproof camera on the rocks, I totally solved it. The micro SD is gone. Tried to save some of the files, but you can see the results here. So after all this, I decided I would make the best of this trip. Fished some more, saw some beautiful birds, and generally just messed around in the river, and an unexpected storm put an end to this adventure. What a great video that was, huh? This guy must have all the time in the world to make videos like this. Well, I don't. Making these videos takes a lot of time and effort, but I realize this is what I love and want to do. And if you like what I do and maybe want to support me, the best way to do that is by watching my other videos. For example, this one, where I venture deep into the Carpathian mountains in search of some wild trout. You can click the link if you are interested. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Bye.